What does it take?
These are figures we can't ignore. Be informed, be aware, be more than just another statistic. Sky News, on air continuously for over 68,328 hours.
This is Sky News.
The big chill. Britain shivers into 1997. We've the latest live.
A rise, Sir Paul. The Queen honours one of Liverpool's favourite sons.
And Seaman reaches another goal. He's made an MBE.
Sky News today with Simon McCoy and Paula Fennick.
Good afternoon. Britain is shivering in the grip of an Arctic blast, and it's likely to get colder still as the new year dawns. Siberian winds are bringing sub-zero temperatures. They could plummet to as low as -°C in the next few days. Snow is causing treacherous conditions across much of the country today. The worst affected areas are in the south and east.
1996 is bowing out with an icy blast. And 97 will begin with some of the coldest weather Britain has seen for many years. The southeast of England is bearing the brunt of the weather, with many places already under several inches of snow and more on the way, according to the weather experts. It means driving conditions are hazardous, and the seasonal warnings are being reinforced by motoring organisations. Only drive if absolutely necessary, and even then with the utmost care is the message.
There's a lot of snow and a lot of ice underneath the snow, which is causing quite a few problems. Lots of people running into problems, either having to abandon their cars because they can't get through. We've got extra patrols on duty to cope with it, but the most important thing that people should recognise is listen to the weather forecast and use some common sense.
Animals too are feeling the cold snap. Farmers are having to make special provision to make sure livestock gets enough food and water. Some areas of Britain will see the mercury plunging to -10 centigrade, creating problems for many.
Just the way the snow gets on the lines, it just causes the lines to break after a while, where they get brittle. Very cold and brittle sort of thing.
Simply getting out and about is proving back-breaking work for some, though it's an ill wind, as they say, which blows no one any good fortune. For those with fun as top of their priorities, the chilly weather is manna from heaven. And snowboarders will have plenty of time to practice. The London Weather Centre predicts the cold snap will take us well into the new year. David Bowden, Sky News.
And our reporter Peter Sharp joins me now from Kent. Peter, just how bad is it?
It's not too bad now. You can see there's a bit of sun out. The wind is bitter, I must say. But in the early hours of the morning, I left home south from here, just outside Eastbourne. That whole area of the South Downs really took a beating overnight. This is the village of Frant, which is just south of Tunbridge Wells, and it's this whole area stretching down to the coast and eastwards that, as I say, bore the brunt of the storm. The AA and the RAC were saying at one stage they were handling up to 90 calls an hour. I think we're very lucky that it wasn't a very busy day in terms of commuting, because there wasn't an awful lot of traffic on the road, and I think that helped a lot in terms of the volume of traffic leading into town. But as David said in his report, it's going to get much worse before it gets better.
Looking behind you, there's no movement of traffic at the moment, but we are looking at people going out to parties on New Year's Eve and wanting to travel. What is the advice from the motoring organisations?
Well, the advice really is to phone your destination before you leave, because I noticed here, as I said, we're in Frant. If you go another 10 miles towards London, there's virtually no snow on the ground at all. So you could be feeling you're going into somewhere that's, you know, pretty well safe and pretty well clear of snow, and suddenly find yourself you're in roads that have really taken a beating. Especially in this area, what we had here was black ice on the roads before the snow started late last night. And of course that snow is now compacted onto the black ice, making life very, very difficult and very dangerous. So phone ahead before you leave.
And if we listen to the forecasters, they're saying that things are only going to get worse.
Yes, I think this area possibly will escape the next blast. What we're expecting later this afternoon is the northeast to really suffer the full brunt of these Siberian winds, especially around the Manchester area. So the trouble should be shifting north tomorrow.
Now, people watching in northern parts of the country may always snigger when the south and the east suffers like this. What advice are people being given at homes to make sure pipes don't leak, this sort of thing in this extreme weather?
Well, just basically take the normal precautions. What they've found is, though, for once, Simon, we've had what they call the right sort of snow. This is a very dry snow. It doesn't hang on the lines, on the power lines. It gets blown off. The wet snow that sits on the lines, it freezes and thaws and freezes and thaws, and that builds up the weight, and that brings the power lines down. But mercifully, this snow, for once, is the right sort of snow.
Peter Sharp, thank you very much indeed, and stay warm.
Well, as temperatures stay well below zero, a group of Labour MPs is urging the government to allow more pensioners to claim cold weather payments. They say the present rules prevent many needy people receiving the extra money.
Some parts of the country have recorded temperatures at or below freezing for 7 consecutive days. Cold enough and long enough to trigger government cold weather payments of £8.50 for the poorest pensioners. But Labour MPs, protesting to the Prime Minister today, argued the system was too bureaucratic.
And I think it's a disgrace that the poor who rely so much on any additional help that can be given during the winter months, in most parts of the country have not received a penny, and despite the very harsh weather in the last 7 days.
And those representing old folk agreed the present method was arbitrary.
There's one town in Somerset, for instance, where older people have received the benefit, but other older people in a village just 6 miles away who have yet to receive anything. So we would like to see the system be standardised. All older people on benefits receive a payment to make sure that they don't have to worry about their fuel bills over winter.
And a Labour backbencher will introduce a bill in the Commons in the new year to include in the calculation of the cold weather payment the wind chill factor, which makes the weather feel much colder than the actual recorded temperature. It's something the government said was under consideration, but no decision had yet been taken. Paul Bromley, Sky News, Westminster.
Paul McCartney tops this year's New Year's Honours list. He's become Sir Paul. Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber enters the Lords as figures from the world of entertainment dominate the list. Joan Collins and Cilla Black receive OBEs. The entertainer Frankie Vaughan receives a CB. We'll be talking to him live in a moment. But along with the stars, 600 lesser-known individuals were nominated by members of the public.
Endorsement of the glamorous world of showbiz by the political establishment has long been seen as a way of sharing in their popularity. In the 60s, with the Beatles at their height, the Labour Party linked its name with the lovable Mop Tops. Today it's the turn of the Tories, as former Beatle Paul McCartney is delighted to become Sir Paul.
So I hope I can be worthy of it. I'd like to thank my wife and kids and wish everyone a Happy New Year.
Cilla Black brings her own brand of matchmaking glamour with the award of an OBE. And just as his film of the stage show Evita opens, Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber enters the House of Lords. One Labour MP says it's all John Major's way of trying to bring a splash of colour to an otherwise grey administration.
Well, it's a showbiz list, and it makes you wonder whether or not this has been done to put a bit of glamour and glitz around the grey John Major. But if you're going to have an honours list, why not give it to millionaires in the world of the arts and entertainment and people in sport, as opposed to those that give large amounts of money to the Conservative Party, grey businessmen in offices in the city. But there is a time when you wonder where this honours list is going to. Is it just there to try and give a little bit of glamour to the Prime Minister, or is it there to express real public feeling?
The concern being that without any mention of the heroism of Dunblane or murdered head Philip Lawrence, these showbiz gongs trivialise the whole honours system. Richard Bestick, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, we're joined now by one of the famous recipients of an award in the New Year's Honours list, the entertainer Frankie Vaughan, who's now a CBE. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
So talk us through it then. The letter comes through the letter box, you open it up, and there it says you've been honoured in this way. How did you react?
Well, that wasn't quite the answer. We have a discretionary period. A letter arrives about a month before, it's officially announced. And it's not for sure, not for definite, so you sit in it for a month. And in my case, yesterday my manager rang me, and he congratulated me, and he said he's besieged by the press, and they want to talk to me over this very wonderful honor that's come my way. And you receive it as it comes. It's still a marvelous surprise, and it's still amazing. The lovely thing about it is that this time I'm very happy to say my wife figured in it somewhat, because she's half at least of my life. And we had the Times on to us, and they did a lovely photograph which appeared in today's paper, a lovely color photograph of my wife Stella and I'm delighted about it all. Why shouldn't I be?
Indeed, and many congratulations. Frankie, most people obviously know you as an entertainer, but what they may not know is your lifelong work for charities. Is that why you won this award?
Well, they tell me that it's because of my work with the NABC, under the umbrella of NABC, young people's organizations. And of course, I don't want awards for things like that. I do it because I love doing it. I'm an ex-Boys Club member, and I know the great work that they do. So it's part and parcel of my life. And why I say my wife deserves half of this is because she's allowed me the time to spend all my career working for and on behalf of the young people of Great Britain. And it's really acknowledgement of the great work that is done by the NABC, Clubs for Young People.
Now, your wife has always been a very important figure in your life, I know, and in fact was responsible for you doing the seemingly unthinkable. You turned down Marilyn Monroe, didn't you?
That never occurred to me at the time, because I was very happily married. I still am, and very much in love still. So, well, I suppose I was very naive, but I never felt that obligated. That's a strange word to use.
But finally, you've won this award. What do you think are the principles by which you've lived that have earned you this?
Oh, I don't think about those things. I just know that I enjoy my life fully, and I am what I've always wanted to be, and that is to be wanted. Anybody in my profession who says he doesn't love his work is crazy. We love being loved. And as long as we're wanted, we're there. It's no big hazard for me to be asked to do something, to help somebody. And that's what I'm here for.
Frankie Vaughan, CBE, many congratulations and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, there's been more international pressure on the Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic to accept the results of local elections. Representatives of the British and Dutch governments will attempt today to deliver a message urging him to accept the opposition victory. Preparations are underway in Belgrade for what's expected to be the largest anti-government demonstration so far. We can go now live to Tim Marshall in Belgrade. Tim, international pressure building on Milosevic then now. He's got to capitulate to protesters' demands sooner or later, hasn't he?
Possibly not, because he can hope that the whole crisis goes away. And yes, tonight's demonstration is supposed to be a huge one, but you can see the weather. It's -10 now. It'll go well below that after darkness falls, and that could put something of a chilly dampener on the whole proceedings. As far as the European Union's message to Mr. Milosevic is concerned, we understand that about now they're at the Foreign Ministry, but we also understand that President Milosevic won't even see them. He's sent one of the junior officials down to receive this message, and he may well just ignore it. And whether I don't think he will capitulate in the short term, but whatever, even if he doesn't, he has been very, very badly damaged by this pro-democracy organisation and demonstrations, and I think that next year he may be beaten by the ballot box if there could be international observers for an election.
Well, if he's refuting the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe's findings on the electoral fraud, and he's turning down seeing these EU delegates, isn't this increasingly a sign of a president out of touch with his people?
Absolutely, and many people who don't support him in this country would say that's been the case for a couple of years. It's important to remember that he does still retain a sizable body of support as well in this country. Now, the problem with the EU is that they have a very small stick with which to beat Mr. Milosevic. Trade with the EU would certainly hurt him if it was stopped. But there's no way they're going to get international sanctions reimposed on Serbia because Russia is in the Security Council of the United Nations and they will always veto it. So the EU only has a small stick with which to beat him.
Now, the dissident army officers have made their position clear on this. They're not about to turn on their own countrymen, but the police, I understand, have got a different perspective.
They have. You have to understand the background to this. The Yugoslav army was blamed by the politicians which led them into the Yugoslav wars, which they didn't perform very well in, and then the politicians then blamed the army for that. Subsequently, they transferred all the power, the arms, the weapons, and the pay scale into the police force and created these special militias. And they are the ones who have the power. And because they're paid by the Milosevic regime, they tend to support him. Now, we have information from the High Command meeting yesterday morning.
Tim, I'll have to interrupt you there. Thanks very much for joining us.
Here, New Year's revellers are being urged to stay away from Trafalgar Square tonight. Police are warning that some people could be injured in the crush of large crowds. But the advice is likely to be ignored by tens of thousands of people as they see in 1997 at the traditional venue for midnight celebrations.
On the stroke of 12 tonight, police say Trafalgar Square should be left to the lions and to the pigeons. Previous experience, they argue, has shown that the square wasn't designed to cope with the 100,000 revellers who are expected to gather to see in the new year, risking injury from the crush.
Our concern is always public safety and young people being crushed in the crowd. I mean, believe it or not, people actually bring children here, bring dogs, and this is not the sort of venue at all to hold the celebration.
The risk of revellers hurting themselves will be limited. There'll be no fountain water to dance in, and no chance to climb Nelson's Column. The police are keen to emphasise that there'll be little for revellers to do but to stand around for a long and probably cold time with lots of other people. For many, of course, that's the whole point in being here. It'll be a different story in Edinburgh, where much entertainment is being laid on. The city expects once again to host the world's biggest New Year's Eve celebration. In London, police are hoping the threat of bad weather will be enough to persuade many to stay indoors. Martin Brunt, Sky News in central London.
And Sky News will be covering New Year's celebrations around the world. We'll start with reports from Sydney in Australia, where their New Year starts in under an hour's time, at 1 o'clock our time, and we'll be going live to cover their celebrations in 44 minutes' time. 8 hours later, at 9 p.m, we'll cross to Moscow to catch the start of the Russian New Year. At midnight, we'll be in London's Trafalgar Square to see in the British New Year. And by 5 on Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning, the New Year comes round in the United States. We'll be reporting from the celebrations in New York.
The Fred West story is heading for the big screen. It's been confirmed today that a London production company has acquired the film rights option to official archive material. The official solicitor, Peter Harris, says he's entered into an option agreement with the Portman Entertainment Group.
Indian police have recovered nearly 50 bodies from a train which was ripped apart by a bomb. It happened at Guwahati in the northeastern state of Assam. The remoteness of the region is hampering rescue services. The train was on its way to Delhi. Earlier reports of up to 300 dead are now being discounted.
A post-mortem has failed to establish the cause of death of jazz legend Ronnie Scott. An inquest heard today that the 69-year-old musician and club owner had suffered from depression and had attempted suicide in the past. Ronnie Scott was found dead at his Chelsea home 2 days before Christmas. The inquest was adjourned for a month to allow further investigations into the cause of his death.
Time to look at the business news now. Here is Sarah Montague.
Thanks very much, Simon. Hello again. Well, the business world has picked up a clutch of awards in the New Year's honours list today. Raj Bagri, the chairman of the London Metal Exchange, has been made a life peer. Others honoured today include Railtrack's chairman Bob Horton and Lloyd's of London chairman David Rowland. They both get knighthoods. And there are CBEs for the guru of the Zion computer organiser, David Potter, and for Rupert Perry, chief executive of EMI Europe, for services to the recording industry. British Airways won't comment on reports that it's poised to buy a 16% stake in Taiwan's biggest airline, China Airlines. The report in Taiwan's Economic Daily News says BA's stake would be worth around £140 million. If true, the deal will give BA a foothold in the rapidly expanding Pacific airline market. And the regional electricity company Northern Electric has finally recommended that shareholders accept the hostile bid from US power group Cal Energy. The move comes a week after Cal Energy announced that it had the support of 50.3% of the shareholders. It'll dampen speculation that a group of investors led by the Prudential Corporation would hold out as minority shareholders. Now on the financial markets, it's the final moments of this year's trading on the stock market. True to form, the FTSE 100 has been setting records again today. It's up just 1.2 at the moment. They're at 4,116. It set a new record of 4,123, having closed at record levels last night. The stock market closes in 10 minutes' time, half-day holiday. On the foreign exchanges, the pound-dollar rate 169.98, up 1 cent today. Once against the German currency, also looking strong. Was looking strong, come back, was up a pfennig. It's now up just a touch at 263.33. I'll be back in 15 minutes with more. Why are you sniggering?
That's like you wound up your watch, wasn't it?
Thanks very much, Sarah. We still have for you all the sport in the programme with Steve Bottomley, including an early New Year celebration for some of sport's top names. That's still to come.
Hello again, this is Sky News, and these are the latest headlines this hour. Britain is shivering in the grip of an Arctic blast, and it's likely to get colder still as the new year dawns. Snow is causing treacherous conditions across much of the country today. The worst affected areas are in the south and east.
Paul McCartney tops this year's New Year's honours list. He's become Sir Paul. Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber enters the Lords as figures from the world of entertainment dominate the list.
Preparations are underway in Belgrade for what's expected to be the largest anti-government demonstration so far. And the British and Dutch governments will increase pressure on Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic to accept opposition victories in local elections.
Well, Steve Bottomley's here now with all the sport for you.
Paula, thanks very much indeed. A very good afternoon. Britain's big freeze is already having an adverse effect on tomorrow's sporting calendar, with football and racing both suffering. At the races, today's meetings at Fontwell, Catterick and Punchestown have all been abandoned due to frost and snow. The all-weather track at Lingfield, the only survivor, and all tomorrow's meetings are now off except at the all-weather track at Southall. At Cheltenham, an inspection had been due at lunchtime, but earlier this morning, the clerk of the course, Philip Arkwright, reported the track frostbound and therefore unfit for tomorrow's meeting. In football, there's an inspection shortly at Filbert Street, where Leicester are due to play Tottenham tomorrow. Another Premiership match in doubt is the Coventry-Sunderland game at Highfield Road. There's an inspection there at 3 o'clock. So news on that later. But one Premiership match already a casualty. Derby against Sheffield Wednesday. That's been postponed on police advice due to the poor road conditions in the area. Some nationwide league matches have been postponed already as well. The games at Oxford, Port Vale and Sheffield United in Division 1. At Brentford, Luton, Notts County, Rotherham and Stockport in Division 2. And the games at Colchester, Mansfield, Rochdale and Scunthorpe in the 3rd Division. In other football news, the Wimbledon midfielder Øyvind Leonhardsen is reported to be considering his future with the Premiership surprise team. The 26-year-old Norwegian joined the club 2 years ago, but is thought to be having doubts about a new 4-year contract. Newcastle boss Kevin Keegan is among Leonhardsen's admirers, but Wimbledon would want up to 10 times the £600,000 that they paid for him. At Wimbledon at Southampton tomorrow, but the Premiership's match of the day will be the one at Old Trafford, where Manchester United take on Aston Villa. United have climbed into 2nd place behind Liverpool after a run of form that suggests a determined push for their 4th championship in 5 years. Villa boss Brian Little expects a tough match.
They're focused on the league again. They seemed, again, from a distance for that team to be changing week in and week out during the European campaign when that was around them. And I don't think that would have helped them too much. But they are focused once again on the Premiership, and whoever's playing them at the moment is finding it very difficult.
The New Year's celebrations have started early for a number of stars from the world of sport. 8 leading figures have been honoured, including Damon Hill, who's been awarded the OBE after winning the Formula One World Championship. There's an MBE for the Arsenal and England goalkeeper David Seaman, and also a CBE for the Olympic rowing champion Stephen Redgrave, whose gold medal in Atlanta was his 4th in consecutive games. And another popular figure from the world of sport to be honoured is one of cricket's all-time greats, Alec Bedser. Now 78, the former England player and chairman of selectors, has received a knighthood.
60 years of memories and service to the game. Cricket legend Sir Alec Bedser, who has been honoured twice before with an OBE and a CBE, caps his distinguished career with a knighthood.
Astonishment, really, but nevertheless very proud that it should happen. I've tried to play my part in the game, and that's what it's for, I think, some reward, not only for me, probably for the game as well.
A lifelong servant of Surrey, he helped them to 7 consecutive championship victories between 1952 and 58. But he's best remembered for his England career, taking 236 wickets in 51 tests. And with his trademark in-swing, he became the only man to dismiss Don Bradman twice without score.
He came in to bat, he was number 3. And I bowled these, I think it was about the 8th ball I bowled him. It swung then late, swung late and moved back off the pitch, and he missed it. Hit the stump, so that was that. And then the next time was at Nottingham in 48, when, well then we worked out a bit of a method, and I bowled this ball, which again swung late, and instead of, he got caught by Len Hutton, behind on the leg side, the ball swung late, inside it. He was caught there for naught, so very occasional.
After he finished his playing career, Bedser became an England selector and was chairman for 13 years until 1981. But the man who introduced Ian Botham to international cricket has seen nothing in England's recent performances to impress him.
Oh, it's sad, but still, we've gone through bad times before, but we seem to have a longer period of bad times now, and I think the overall coaching maybe is not quite right, or whether the effort's there, I don't know.
Bedser's now content to take a back seat, but his knighthood is a timely reminder of England's once great cricketing tradition. Ollie Foster, Sky News.
The American Jonathan Stark, a Wimbledon winner over Andre Agassi earlier this year, has provided another upset. He's beaten the number 3 seed Andre Medvedev 6-1, 6-1 at the Australian Hardcourt Championships in Adelaide. It's the second major upset of the tournament. Yesterday, defending champion Yevgeny Kafelnikov was another first-round casualty. Now, just a reminder, don't forget Sportsline at 7:30 tonight, all the day's sports news, and our look ahead to what's likely to be setting the sporting agenda in 1997. See you for more later on.
Thank you very much indeed, Steve. Well, it's our top news story. Let's catch up and see what's happening with the weather. Our satellite picture shows icy conditions right across Europe. The North Sea cloud is bringing further snow flurries to the east of Britain.
Europe-wide today, the top temperature